أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته كيف حالكم؟ الحمد لله. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, respected ulama and huffaz, this evening, alhamdulillah, we begin a new chapter. We are looking at Kitab al-Salah, the chapter of prayer. And the author begins, alhamdulillah, by mentioning as-salatu al-mafruda khamsun, that our salah consists of 5. And what is very interesting is that the author begins by highlighting the different awqat or waqts or waqtus, as we pronounce it, and state it in our colloquial language, the waqtus, the awqat of salah. And this is a very important point because sometimes we overlook the particular waqt of a certain salah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah An-Nisa, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Inna as-salata kanat 'ala al-mu'minina kitaban mawquta. Where Allah mentions that the salah has been prescribed upon the believers, kitaban mawquta, that each salah has its own waqt. And we know this already. I'm not stating anything new, but what is critical, and I think particularly for our young, our youth, is to acknowledge that for most of the awqat, there is a waqtul ikhtiyar, a preferred period for the salah in which there's more reward, and there's a waqtul jawaz, a permissible period. And it's not necessarily from one waqtu until the next. So sometimes people delay a salah until the very end. So inshallah, let us look at the words of the author to understand the 5 awqat. So we're starting off with the dhuhr waqt. And today it's very convenient. You just check an app or you check a calendar to determine when the waqt is. But originally in fiqh, these technologies weren't there. So the author indicates that there are 5 obligatory daily prayers. The first one, the time for the noon prayer or the dhuhr prayer, begins with the sun passing its zenith point. So it begins after zawal. Okay? So during the waqt of zawal, when the sun has reached its highest point, the zenith point, a salah is not permissible then. We need to wait for the sun to pass that point. Then the waqt of dhuhr begins, and it ends, importantly, when the length of an object's shadow minus the shadow that it had at the point of zenith is the same as its height. So the length of the object shadow, you minus from that the shadow that it had at its zenith point at zawal. That shadow is then the same as the height. Then that is the end of the dhuhr prayer. Then with Asr now begins immediately thereafter. So the time for the mid-afternoon prayer, the Asr prayer, begins when the length of the object shadow minus its shadow at the time of zenith, of zawal, is greater than the object's height. Right? So immediately from dhuhr, we move into Asr. Now for Asr, there's a preferred period. Its preferred time for Asr ends when an object's shadow is twice its height. That is when the preferred period ends. The permissible period is until sunset, jawaz. I should also mention that many ulama have indicated that it is makruh to delay your asr until the very end. In other words, just before sunset. So whilst there is jawaz, permissibility, particularly for the asr prayer, because many people do this maybe through negligence, they delay the asr until the very end, as they say, until the nipperkie, until the very end. And then, they keep the same wudu for maghrib, when they on the musalla. That is an inappropriate practice. So the goal for asr would be to be in waqtul ikhtiyar, the preferred period. Then for maghrib, and this is a very interesting one, for maghrib, because in fact, in the Shafi'i madhab, there are 2 opinions regarding maghrib. But I'll mention the opinion that the author has highlighted. So for maghrib, the author says there is only one waqt. We don't have ikhtiyar or jawaz, we don't have preferred or permissible. only one waqt. And the author indicates it begins when the sun sets completely, and listen, and it lasts long enough for the following to be done. So the author says to perform the adhan, to take wudu, to cover your awrah for salah, to make iqama, and to perform 5 raka'at of salah. That is your period for Maghrib. This is the latter opinion of Imam Shafi'i. Imam Shafi'i preceded this originally with the opinion that the Maghrib Salah will be until the disappearance of the red over the horizon. That was Imam Shafi'i's first opinion. Imam Nawawi also considers this opinion to be more, apparent and appropriate. So essentially, there are two views regarding Maghrib. Many have asked the question, how long can Maghrib, be, and can we delay it? If Maghrib does not run until Isha, very important point. And then, in Ramadan, I'm reflecting on one Haji, you asked me a question, how long can we delay? And so I said we delay until Maulana Rushdie gets out to go for Salah. It was on a lighter note, subhanAllah. But how long can we delay? Technically, we have to fulfill this, but we could take the second opinion of Imam Shafi'i, which is actually going to grant maybe more time. So essentially, we would say about 10 minutes, before we start going into dangerous time. But that is because of the fact that there's Ramadan. Outside of Ramadan, we would be stricter in the madhab and try to have the Maghrib Salah performed as soon as possible. So that is why previously in our communities, the elderly insisted that you be home before Maghrib, because the waqt is very short. So there isn't time to take groceries out of the car and to carry it in and to have all these unnecessary delays. It is best to perform your Maghrib as soon as possible. Then we move over to Isha. Now the time for Isha begins when the red in the sky has disappeared, and its preferred time, now listen, its preferred time is until the end of the first third of the night, right? Its preferred time is for the first third of the night. So many ulama have said that it is safer to perform your Isha before midnight, right? Before midnight, that is definitely, the first third of the night. And the permissible period is, of course, until the true dawn, Subuh Sadiq. Because after we reach Subuh Sadiq, true dawn, we now move over into the waqt of Fajr, and so the waqt of Fajr is from true dawn, and its preferred time extends until there is a yellow glow appearing on the horizon, and its permissible time, Jawaz, is until the rising of the sun. Okay? And then just on the point of Fajr, because many, individuals who get married and they are oversleeping for Fajr, newlyweds, may Allah assist all of them, and those who are not newlywed as well, may Allah assist all. So many have this view that, okay, if it is now, the sun is rising and Salah is makruh, they're going to wait until, afterwards. So they decide to go back to sleep. This is completely, impermissible. As soon as you realize that your Fajr has to be performed, then it should be performed. That is the better opinion, because your Fajr, of course, is due. So if you realize that you have not performed it, the Salah must be performed, inshallah. And with that, we have started our chapter, Kitab al-Salah, wa sallallahu wa sallam alayhi wa